Hello, and welcome to Parenting Differently, where we leave behind the old way of parenting and allow the gifts of motherhood to raise us. Different to how we were raised, maybe different to how society is telling us to raise, maybe even different from what we expected we would be, how we expected we would be raising our kids. Just different. I'm your host, Anya Simmons. And I'm a trained British nanny. And when I came to parenting, I thought I had it down. I thought this is going to be easy. I am trained in this. And boy, was I mistaken. So I realized that it was my kids and I that were being raised together. That as I was feeling like I'm teaching them, they were teaching me. They were raising me up to be a better person. So I'm a mom of two big people, a yoga teacher and a parenting coach. And today I'm super excited to welcome Ingrid Palmer to our show. I met Ingrid, or became aware of Ingrid, through Speaker Slam. Her speeches are so incredible and her words so powerful. You just sort of sit and drink them in awe. Now, Ingrid is a social advocate, a speaker, a change maker, a personal growth facilitator. So welcome, Ingrid.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Ingrid, starting with my first question that I've asked all the guests, who are you and who are you mothering?
Well, I am a warrior. I am a perpetual learner and an artist,
Mm.
performer, storyteller, and I
Yeah.
sing three dynamic kids. Well, I have an adult daughter. I'm still raising.
Right.
Otherwise, I have a daughter who's an actor, um, and she's 27, and I have
Mm.
a son on the spectrum. He's 13. And my little one is 11 years old. She is a star in the making. 11, 21, and a 5-year-old granddaughter. So
Yeah.
she's the easy one.
She's the easy one.
I tell you there, I just like do whatever I want, and her mom's got to deal with the outcome.
There you go. Exactly. Not your problem. You get to be fun.
I get to do all the fun.
Excellent. Excellent. So, in your own parenting journey, sort of, what are you uncovering about yourself from, let's say, the 27-year-old one down to the 5-year-old? What has motherhood uncovered in Ingrid?
Well, I discovered I wasn't as cool as a parent as I thought I was going to be. I'm going to be the best parent ever. I'm not going to bother all of these dumb rules that adults, all this inflicting on kids. Like, I'll never do that to my kid. You remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
never be like you.
yeah.
Uh, I thought it wasn't as simple as just saying you weren't going to do it. It just kind of seeps in. You've got to be really, really intentional
Yeah.
about not being how you didn't want to.
Mm.
And discovering that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
But it's no, you don't do that.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm not as free spirited as I thought I would be naturally, and that it's something that I have to work on.
Mm.
So that's that I discovered with my first, and that I'm still working on. I'm still working on being even more like loose,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
giving them like more freedom. Like a lot of things in theory that I wanted to do and I thought I would just do naturally. I'm realizing that no, it's work. Like I've got to be
Mm.
very active, intentional about doing it. That it doesn't just flow. I wish it
Mm.
would.
I
Be a lot
know.
easier.
Absolutely, it would be a lot easier, and that is so an important point because people who don't have kids have a lot of we have all these expectations and all these plans, right? And I always thought I was just so relaxed. I was just chilled, cool, And then I realized, oh, really? You're kind of hiding all this anxiety inside. The outside is looking cool and relaxed, but you're going, oh my gosh, why can't my son do this properly? Oh, how embarrassing. Like it was a bigger deal inside. So I understand that.
And you catch yourself, you know, I always wanted to be the gardener, not the builder, right? So
Yeah.
create this child and trying to help this child grow. But then you'll find yourself, you know, getting out your carpenter tools and catch yourself trying to say, no, you're supposed to be this way. And it's like, oh, no, don't do that. You have to
Yeah.
constantly remind yourself, put those away. Yeah,
Oh.
and then the personality, I didn't really factor how personality difference were going to play into your parenting and how that really could affect relate and irritants. Like I thought, you know, having a child that was a lot like me, we'd be buddies, but all the ways that my kids are I don't know what it says, but the ways in which they're like me are the ones that I find the most irritating. So
Oh, I know. I can relate. I can totally relate. And I love that analogy. That is great about the carpenter and the tools, and put your bloomin' tools down. It's not for you to create. Leave them, right?
they're already made.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're how they are. There's no fixing or put those tools away.
I love that. I love
But
that. I think that should be a sticker somewhere or something. You know, parenting 101. Put your tools away. Work create you, not them, right?
exactly. And I love what you said in your intro, which is so true. And it's the philosophy I have in my home is that we're growing each other. And I get that too, you know, like mom and dad, we're not just raising you, but you're raising us too. You're teaching us. So we exchange those roles, right? And I'll tell them that, you know, some days and some moments you guys are the teachers and we're the learners and vice versa. So there's no one way here. And mom and dad are not always right. And you remind us of the rules too. You remind us that, oh, not supposed to do that or say that, or, you know, you get to do that too, the same way that we'll point out things, you get to point things out to us too and remind us of, you know, appropriately speaking in tones. You know, because tell them things that we forget too, and we're not perfect. And I don't want to keep this facade of parents being perfect and knowing everything because you know that's how I was raised, and the parents are always right, and you couldn't question anything. And even when you saw, you know, or heard them doing things like, wait a second, they tell us not to do that. You know, I want my kids to be able to point that out and to ask questions and say, hey, you say we're not supposed to do this, but I just heard you or saw you do this. And why is that okay in this instance? And then I can either elaborate or I can say, oops, you're right. Not good.
That's phenomenal to me. That is such a gift to our kids because we don't know the answers, right? Like we've never raised that person on that day and been in this mood and this, like everything is a variable every single moment, right? And so to let them have their way of sort of saying, you know, this isn't working, mom, I don't like how you say that when people are around or whatever, right? And that you're vulnerable enough, which we wish everyone would be, but many aren't, right? Because we have this stance of just like, hello, old way, right? I'm the parent, how dare a child question me? And to be vulnerable enough to say, oh, you're right. Oh, and they will show us, oh boy, mine are tough. I've got 2 tough critics in my house. You know, that some stuff you're like, oh, just give me a break. I'm trying my best.
I know sometimes with the bringing up, and especially I think it's been really beneficial having that 13-year gap between my kids. I remember when I first had my son, and my daughter was like 13 at the time, and then she was 16 when I had my last. Wow. And I remember after she was around 19 or stuff. So, you know, what do you think? Give me, you know, your feedback on how I did, what I did, and what I should change or whatever. I just was really interested in hearing her opinion on my parenting, and I thought there was going to be this great laundry list of
here's my time, wait.
didn't. And she was like, no, no, you're pretty good. And I was like, wow, really? You know, because I remember in her early teens, she had a lot of opinions on my parenting then, and I was wrong. So
Yeah.
it was interesting that at the end of her teen years that she, you know, it had a different perspective and felt that, you know, it hadn't been so bad after all.
It's like, phew, okay, one down, right? Two to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, but I still reflect on the things that she said. Like I remember her saying, "Oh, you just love punishment, and you just love, you know," because I would ground, I would, you know, I remember taking the door off her room once, like I
Right.
did things, and I realized though that it didn't work. That her behavior actually deepened, and I would try to like increase the consequences then you know, and then
Yeah.
she'd retaliate with so it didn't work. So I learned with that, they've never been grounded.
Right.
Like have
Yeah.
never been grounded, and they do have consequences, but you know, I've changed how I do it and realized that conversing and trying to get underneath the behavior is more important than assigning, you know, a consequence to what you've done,
Oh,
which I thought of with her. It was just, oh, you did this and this is what happens.
yeah. And I think it would be too, probably, I know from my own experience, it's when you start to get fearful, you get more controlling, right? We
Mm,
get more like, okay, well, well, nobody can do that. I'll up it. And then you're like, what? Well, how can I can laugh? Run out. And like you say, it hasn't solved
here
anything.
are like, oh, if I don't handle this now, then you're gonna turn out. We always have the worst thing. You know, you're gonna be like, you know, the worst person in the world. You'll be selfish. You'll be a criminal. You'll
Yeah.
be deviant or something. And really, you know, that's not going to happen. But we always go to the worst case scenario. And it's like,
Absolutely.
and one thing I also realized that, you know, I don't have to deal with this instantly. Like with my eldest, I always felt like, oh, I've got to deal with it
Great
right now.
point.
And now I learned that, you know, I can take a few days, I can take a week and really think about it, you know, and discuss it with my partner and figure out what the right thing is to do. Because when you reflexively just like go, oh, you tend to do the wrong thing. You tend to overdo it, and now you've got to be held to, you know, this crazy
Yeah.
consequence that you've just assigned. You know, it's like, oh shoot, I forgot that I actually have to enforce
That's right. I've given
for
myself
30
a
days.
punishment.
You know? Exactly. So I really realized that it's okay to take the time and process what happened and to have ongoing conversation and to figure it out, and that it doesn't have to be instantaneous. That's
Right.
okay. You're not losing anything because you
Mm.
take the time to try and really understand and let that emotion, that initial emotion kind of really that kind of simmer down
Mm. Yeah.
and feel from that, right? Because when we respond out of heightened emotion, it's never going to be the right thing at
No,
all.
no. We're in our
Amen.
ego, we're in our fear, we're in so many other places as opposed to the consciousness, the heart. Okay, what is she really, what, like, that's the raising, right? Isn't it? I love that. I love that.
Yes. And to also reflect, I always try to reflect on when something in my children's behavior is driving me crazy. I'm like, okay, how have you influenced this behavior? So I'm
Mm.
really realizing it's tones when I listen to them talk, you know, and I'm like, okay, that's, you know, your tone.
Yeah.
We've developed this family tone of, you know, being really short, kind of saying things a little bit more harshly than it has to be said, and you hear it really when you hear them repeating it, not when it comes out of
That's the
your mouth.
mirror. That's the mirror. Absolutely.
So then when I hear them, I always have to reflect, okay, how have you influenced this? What behavior are you manifesting that has, you know, um, you know, influenced their behavior also? So I've got to
Mm-hmm.
look at that too and take ownership of what I have to do. And so I like to talk about we.
Mm.
We've got to change the way we talk to each other in this family. And
Mm.
you've got to be kinder and gentler and a little bit more patient with each other, and you know, to really take a leadership on that, and to recognize that, you know, we all play a part in it,
Yeah.
and it's not just about saying you know
Oh,
that.
absolutely. I remember hearing my daughter, she was maybe 8, 9, say something to my husband. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a rude little missy. And then I stopped a second and I went, oh, I kind of speak like that. I kind of said that to him too. You know? It's,
Yeah, It's that uh-oh moment.
Yeah, you're like, why is she being so rude? And then you go, oh, I think that she's heard her mummy speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Thinking. Yeah.
that's fantastic. Wow. Wow, you got to be writing this stuff down. You're going to be a great teacher on all of these things because people need to hear these ways. And it is that, like you said, you're into always self-learning and growth. And
Mm.
that's what's going to make the difference, right? Like I can't imagine my parents kind of really thinking, why is Andy being like this? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Let's think about it deeper, right? It's just like, right, you're being naughty, out, or whatever the
I'm the
punishment.
boss. Yeah, I really came from the parents are the boss. Period.
Mm.
They don't have to explain everything. It's because they said so. You're not owed anything. You're the kid and know
Yeah.
your place.
And I just thought now,
And yeah.
I just was thinking now that we have a bit of a time delay, so I'm always trying to wait for you to stop. So if you think I'm not listening, I'm listening. Our time delay, just a teeny
Oh,
second or so. That's all. But I was just thinking with what you were saying that as a child, when our parents are that way, the way we know the best, which is still definitely how many people are parenting, how interesting it is for us. Let me see if I can word this correctly. Like the thought that when we realize at some point, similar to Santa, right? When we realize that they don't actually know better or that they're messing up, that what a shock to the system because we've maybe put them on pedestals or they put themselves on the pedestal. And then at some point, our reality and what they're saying isn't matching. So that's a lot of confusion, which normally would then generate a lot of anger, right? I was
see
quite
that
an angry child. Yeah.
it brings mistrust. It
Mm-hmm.
brings mistrust, and so I don't allow that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm
Yes.
gonna my mistakes, and when I'm talking to them about their mistakes, sometimes you give examples of what you did.
Yeah.
I made that mistake too. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, there's no pedestal here.
Yeah.
You're not below me. I'm not above you. I'm
Fantastic.
not perfect. I screw up too. I need to
Mm-hmm.
apologize too. And I remember with my eldest when I would apologize to her, having friends and relatives be like, "Oh, what are you doing? You don't
Right.
apologize over, and you're gonna lose their respect." And like I didn't agree with that because I grew up feeling that adults were such hypocrites, and so
Oh,
so
yeah.
I didn't see that, and I was like, no, I feel like I'll actually garner more respect by
Being
admitting,
human. Yeah.
wrong, right, and say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I screwed up. I tell you
Mm.
not to do that, and I just did it. I tell
Yeah.
you not to, whether it was yelling, whether it was, you know, you called a name, and that could be anything from, why are you so ridiculous? Like you can't. It's not just a word that's flung out there. That's calling a
Right.
name, and that
Mm.
hurts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you can't over not to do that, and then we do it. You've got to apologize, or else you'll never regain that respect and that trust because they remember that you
Yeah.
said this and you did this to me, but you tell me not to, and that you even maybe consequence or lecture when I do,
Mm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's really
Yeah.
important to keep that trust open both ways. And
Yeah.
so I don't feel like I lose anything. I apologize to my children all the time,
Yeah.
you know. But I also have to remember because when I tell them when they apologize to me a lot, I say, well, after a while, the words don't mean much. I need to see a change in behavior. So you've got to remember that yourself, that you can't consistently apologize for the same thing. They want to see a change too.
It's true.
We've got
It's
to hold
very true.
ourselves accountable to the same things that we tell them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, wow. So how do you feel as a busy mama there and grandmama, um, how do you stay connected to your children? Do you think, how do you make the time to, or what are you doing that can keep you connected? So based on your fantastic, according to me, philosophy of life and of raising them, when we get busy, are there ways you manage to stay connected?
Well, the relationship building is the big part to me, and the quality over quantity. Because we all know that like time is Really difficult. We don't always have a lot of time, but when you can spend that time watching a show with them that they like,
Right. Mm-hmm.
um, or I especially like at nighttime we used to have like I'd in the day I would research or find somewhere a question to
Mm-hmm.
ask about anything. Like I've asked them one time, I said, if you could go back in time and relive like one day, like what would you want to do? Or if you could be an animal. Those questions that seem like they're not that important, but that really give you insight
Yeah.
and who they are, and they like that.
Oh
And even
gosh, yes.
yeah, I like doing that. I like having those conversations. So I'll invest in like those conversation cards, or I'll actually like look up stuff like during
Mm-hmm.
like a different question to ask so that we can have those conversations. And just spending time together in
Mm-hmm.
different ways. We have the time going out, doing an activity. During COVID, to keep them active, I was like, okay, we need to exercise. So everybody gets their turn to pick like an exercise video for us to do, and that was interesting. You know, to see the different ones that they picked and what they would do. So you find whatever ways to connect. Having a day where you're responsible for dinner today, so you're going to be together because you're teaching them too, and you're talking. So those moments of getting things done that need to be done, but also using that as a moment to like know each other, to relate. You know what I mean?
Fantastic.
To build that relationship. So those are the ways that I try and stay connected with them, is to in the necessary things of the day, to find those moments too, to connect and talk and learn about each other.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because I think as a child, you see that your mom is fully listening to you. She's interested in you. I mean, that is powerful beyond belief, isn't it? That you matter, and that what you say matters. Like it's kind of reinforcing a lot of what we've spoke of before. Like that one on one, when someone's talking, you are listening and you're
Yeah,
interested. That means that's, when we talk about raising self-esteem or going into this world feeling fully loved, that's it. It's not here's a toy, or here's what mommy keeps saying, oh, but I love you, I'm working so hard because I love you. It's that real connection, and that's
yeah.
valuable.
They remember, to me, I realize now, experiences over material stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have this day with the two younger ones, like they each get a play hooky with mom day. And
Oh,
it's deliberately in the week. It's not on a weekend because that would be normal. I try to communicate with the teachers to make sure that it's not at a bad time. You don't have a test coming up. I usually, so we pick a day during the week, and it's just me and that particular child. And sometimes we plan it together. What do you want to do? Sometimes they pick a movie, they want to go shopping, they want to eat at a particular place. So the first couple of years it was kind of like that. You could pick. They decided. But then now I like really like to take a moment to integrate something I like. So I might pick a particular museum. Like I wanted to do there's an illusionist museum in Toronto, but we didn't
yeah.
do it this year because of COVID. We didn't
Oh, yeah, it
be
kind
able
of
to do it.
COVID took out normal.
Yeah, but I wanted to take opportunities to introduce them to things that they might not pick. But like I love to introduce them to things that they might end up loving that they would never ever choose. So that's another thing that I like to make sure that you have like this special moment that's just about the two of us. No one else is coming, because most of our outings are all together.
Right.
So it's nice to have that particular time where this is just about you and me today, and we're going to do what we want to do together, or what you want to do.
Yeah, but I love that you bring you into it, because you're sort of saying this is something of interest to me and I want to share it with you, or something I enjoy, and because you matter, right? It doesn't have to always be their thing. So that is priceless. That, because it's sort of, and they just are going to enjoy being with you, even if they can't stand a museum. Like you say, they end up enjoying it because it is different. But I think that's really important. And I don't think I did a lot of that. I was so thinking, oh, I need to be focused on what do they enjoy? And then sitting through, oh God, Scooby-Doo 1,000 times. I was like going crazy. Yes. And so to sort of say, hey, you know, this is what we're going to do. Mum really loves this. Let's go see it. I think I should have done, could have, whatever. That would have been a better way of me feeling like I'm showing more of me, my interests, my things, as opposed to it's been quite separate. Here's my stuff, then your stuff, right? And so I love that. I think that's a great idea to bring that in, to sort of have, and like you say, exposing them to something different, even if you're exploring a place that's different for both of you, right? It's something, really, really cool.
They really, really enjoy it. And I'm always open to that. I'm like, don't tell me that you like it just because, you don't want to hurt my feelings or anything. Like, I want to know how you really feel. So I always try to encourage them, like, tell me the truth. Like, I'll encourage them to try something. And by encourage, I mean, yeah, we're going to go do it. But if you really dislike it, we won't do it again. But I really want you to give it, this first try. But I'm not expecting you to please me with your answer. Did you totally hate it? Fine. Right. But thank you for giving it a try. And most of the times, like, they don't. I'll drag them into it, but then they actually end up really liking it. And it's a good lesson for them to know that sometimes something might seem really dreary, but give it a shot. It's something that I really try to impart to them. It's like, give things a try, because you never know. Yeah. You end up liking things that you didn't think you would. And of course, it's always great to give things a try that you are interested in, because sometimes you realize that, oh, I actually really like that.
Changed my mind now. I used to think it was more of my fantasy of what it was going to be like than the reality.
Yeah, because them understanding themselves as early as possible and as deeply as possible is really important to me, because I found that for myself, I really didn't know and understand myself and know what I liked, even as a young adult. And then I would go into school and be like, hey, I want to take this. And I hate it. And then I'd switch and like, I want to do this now. And I hate that too. So I just feel like if they can experiment as much as possible in their youth, they'll know a lot more about themselves. And when they need to make those important choices, they'll be able to do their job.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it took me till I was 30, 40 before I started to go, oh, hang on a second. Actually, I said I always want to do that, but I don't like that idea at all. I've changed my mind.
Yeah. And so anything that I learn, even now as an adult, I impart to them now in childhood, because I feel like if they can get this now, they'll be so much further ahead. Because, just like you said, like, I'm still learning some really important lessons and undoing some and things that I've taken on that other people fostered on me, right?
Yes.
If I can prevent that or help them, get to those places earlier, I just feel like, oh, you'll just be so much further ahead and so much better emotionally, than I am. So anything that I learn, I really try to impart to them. I did this speaking course once, and they had this exercise where you looked in the mirror, you had to look yourself in the eyes and say, I love you. And then you told yourself something that you were proud of yourself for. And then you told yourself something that you forgive yourself for. And then you would commit to something. And I had my kids doing it. I'm like, and they would giggle at first and be like, I love you.
It was sure, that's okay.
It was such a good exercise, and they really took onto it. And I modeled it for them. I was like, I forgive myself for, being afraid or being too hard on myself, so that they could see, like, I'm not saying, what do you forgive yourself for? That can be a really hard thing. So we're showing them that forgive ourselves for, things like, maybe being too afraid to try something that we really want to do, or not going for something that we really wanted to, and to let that go now. And what would you commit to? I commit to giving it another shot, or whatever. So anything that I learn, I try and impart it to them, so that it can help them grow.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, I know you have a partner, so I'm interested in, is he in the same, how do you handle your parenting differences? Maybe I'll put it that way, from your parenting backgrounds being different to your approach. Where are you with that?
Yes, of course. Of course, we have things that we're totally agree on, totally on par with, and other things that we don't. And the
Mhm.
way I look at it is like, fine, you have uh, your right to impart what you feel, because it's not anything that's you know
Awful.
ridiculous or
Yeah.
hurtful or
Yeah.
abusive, but just different perspectives on things. So you impart yours, I'm imparting mine. That's how I see it, and they get both, and they will make their decision. They will decide, do I want to take some of what dad said and some of what mom said? Do I only, they will make that
Mm.
decision. But I feel that we both have the opportunity, the right to impart our values to our children and our perspectives. And they will do what we did. They will decide what they like, what they don't like, what they agree with, and that can change over time, and that's fine. But I believe that, that's okay, that you're my husband is really super protective, so he does a lot of watch out and beware and that, and sometimes I can feel like, oh gosh, that's too much. So I'll do with a well, look at this, gather all the information on something. Yes, we have to be careful, but how can you counter that? How can you keep yourself safe? So he imparts the important, be aware, this could be dangerous, this and this could happen, that's negative. And I impart the, yes, we have to be aware of that. What can we do to mitigate the possibility of that? Or how can you so that's
Yeah.
that's how I handle that. I try and put in another side, give them coping skills, because it is important to be aware of things, but I don't want that to be left there and cause fear and cause you not to be as curious or to reach for things, because it's all fear now. But then how can you mitigate? How can we mitigate fear, which is
Mhm.
because it keeps us safe, but how can we mitigate that so that we still go for what we want, that we still try things, that we
Mhm.
live and don't hide.
That's so funny. We have a similar relationship here, me and my husband too. It's like, oh, did you? And in the news, this is and this and this and this, and I'm like, whoa, Lolly, hang on, he's six.
Yeah,
Like,
oh, and he's like, they've got to know, and I'm like, oh,
that's right. You're like, okay, but like not in a fear way. They can sort of know the facts of certain things. So yes,
right.
that's been our way of me just
Right.
saying, don't listen to him. Listen to mummy. But you're always better. You're always more mature. Definitely.
Yeah, so I try to give them those skills and try to really build that critical thinking. It's really important to me. We don't have really hard and fast rules, and
Hmm.
that's intentional because um, I grew up with, I was molested as a child, and I feel that growing up in that real traditional place where adults are always right and you have to listen, I always felt like, no, I'm not doing that. Um, so I don't have any hard and fast rules, because I recognize that circumstances change. And me
Hmm.
telling my children, I don't want you to walk on the left side of the road. I want you to stay on the right, because that's where I feel it's safe, and don't you go over there.
Mm.
But what if someone's following them one day, or the road's blocked? I don't know. But for
Yeah.
some reason, they have to go on the left side of the road. And we all know that kids really take you literal. And they will sometimes stay in danger or do something dangerous because they don't want to break your rule. So I don't believe in setting hard and fast rules. I believe in giving guidelines and letting them know that you might have to do something different than what we recommend, because circumstances change that day, or they're different. And that's okay. Use your best judgment, tell us about it, and then we'll say, you know what? Maybe this is what you could have done, or that was great, or you know what I mean? But I
Hmm.
try to stay away from hard and fast rules, because you can't account for every situation. And children in their youth don't always, have the skill.
They don't know it yet. They haven't, the
Right.
brains aren't ready. Yeah.
So you've got to give them the freedom to kind of try and think for themselves, and they'll make mistakes, but that's also something that's got to be embraced, that we try to, that it's okay, that when you tell us about it, we can talk about it now and give you options that maybe you didn't realize that you had before. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, I really want them to be critical thinkers and to be able to evaluate and to be able to just say, okay, I think this is the best decision. This is what I'm going to do.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's actually way more protective than saying 100% you don't do this and you always do this. Forget it. No.
Yeah, that whole thing of don't talk to strangers and don't go there.
Hate that
Don't do
rule.
that. Yeah.
Hate that rule. I got into something once with another parent who, because my children, they were teaching the kids about don't talk to strangers, and my kids say, oh, my mom says, that we shouldn't do that because sometimes you have to talk to strangers. And they were like, your mom is wrong. I was livid. I was like,
Not bad.
do your research before you speak to children and know that the majority of people who hurt children are people that they know.
Mm-hmm.
They're people that they know.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes you have to go to a stranger for help, but we try and teach them, like, if you get lost, we said things like, look for a mom with kids. With lots of kids, or you know what I mean? You might have to go into a
real
store.
life strategies, real life what it can be, because I remember that's fantastic, because the stranger idea still the man kind of feel that a stranger, as opposed to somebody they think, oh, but my mum knows that person, or this is somebody, right? And like you're saying, that's not helpful. Don't talk to a stranger. That is old way parenting, right?
Because sometimes those are the only people that are around.
Yeah.
So what are they supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
We try and tell them, find a police officer, find someone in uniform. Like, you try and give them, best case scenarios, like, of what you can do. But if you tell them absolutely don't talk to a stranger, you've left them with no option to get help. And that's not good either. They need to be wary.
Yeah.
But no hard and fast rules. That's our rule. No hard and fast rules.
I love that rule. Wow. Because, for thousands of reasons,
Yeah.
and having the conversations with them keeps that door open.
Yes.
For them to share with you stuff that maybe they don't want to share, or for them to share with you things that they're like, I found this person a little creepy, like they're not in touch with their sensations.
Yes.
Feelings.
Oh, I
We
teach
take all
them
that
to
away,
respect
right?
that. I teach them to respect that, and we've also taught them, whether it's a relative or not, if you're uncomfortable, as somebody, we won't go there. I've told them, if you tell me that you're uncomfortable at a certain place, we'll never go there again. And I've held that for my kids. And you don't have to.
That gave me
explain,
goosebumps.
right. And there doesn't have to be any reason. If you feel, and maybe the person isn't, really wouldn't have done it, but that's okay. That's okay. And that to listen to that intuition and not to feel like you have to talk yourself out of it. Yeah. It's so important. Not to force kids. Like, we all know this, I think, by now, to hug, to kiss relatives, anybody. Oh, no way. Your body is your own. Even from me, you don't want me to touch you, I won't. But try to get them to respect me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to hug right now. I'm like, no, they have no.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, it's not reciprocal. You get it. You're like, oh, nobody on me.
I'm like, no, I don't want you all over me, sitting on me right now.
Especially your little granddaughter. She's like, what? This is lovely. I love my grandma.
Oh my God, it's so funny, but she is so not physical that way. So that's respecting that. She doesn't want to hug. She actually will show you her love by kind of giving you a little shove. She's hilarious. Yeah. She's not like the soft, huggy kiss. She's more like, I'll give you an elbow. Hey, grandma. It's hilarious, but yeah. But to respect that they come whole, they come as they are, and they're fine how they are. So I'm not going to try and change her and say, oh no, you have to give me hugs and kisses every morning. No, she's going to give me a little nudge with her shoulder, and that's her way of saying, hey, how you doing? Yeah, that's okay.
Whew. Well, we can just leave it there, because that's the mic drop, right? That's the respect them as they are, and not be like, but you fulfill me, give me a cuddle because I want to cuddle.
Exactly.
That's okay. You can be however you are, right? You get to be that.
It is, and to understand that, you know what book I found really beneficial? I forget the author right now, but it was the one on the love languages, the 5 love languages. I remember when I found that. Yes, I actually have it too somewhere in my library.
Yeah,
But
what's his name?
and
How? No. Okay, we will
I
put
can't
it somewhere. Yes.
remember. Yeah, but my sister-in-law bought that for me, and it was for, you know, like my adult relationship, my marriage, and which was. But I recognized even before he came out with the one for kids, I'm like, hey, you need to understand their love language too. Hello?
You're back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
you're back. That's okay.
Yeah, there was a phone call coming in. Sorry. But that's been really helpful, and the importance of showing love the way that person needs to receive it. It's so important, and not going from, because we always go from our perspective.
For sure, because it's hard to think that but you don't like it like I like it. It's hard, right?
Yeah,
But I always like someone rubbing
yeah.
my back. How can you not like that?
That was so eye-opening. And then to also recognize, oh, this is how you're showing me love. I didn't realize that. And so that's why I'm able to accept, like, my granddaughter, that's her way of showing love. So I can recognize that. So it's so important, because everybody needs to receive the love in the way that's important to them, and they can feel it. And then we also are able to say, oh, if we didn't recognize it before because we weren't getting in our own style, to say, oh, you do love me.
Yes, exactly.
It just looks like this. It just has this cover on and not this one. That's all.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And how many missed opportunities we have as parents when we're
Yes.
not going to be aware of that. That book was eye-opening for me. I remember doing the questionnaire with my husband, and because I thought, and he is not quite so open to all that stuff. And he kept going,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, mine too. I know.
yeah. He's saying presents. Why does it keep talking about presents? Who wants presents? Nobody cares. I don't want the gift, right? And so it was really interesting afterwards. I thought, that's why I can never buy you anything.
Oh
That's
my gosh,
important.
that's why our husbands are so similar. Yes. Forget the gifts from my husband.
Yeah, he's got nothing.
Forget.
Does nothing
Yeah,
for
that's not
him.
important to
No.
him. Acts of service were way more
Time.
important, I think, in words of affirmation. You can
Mm.
keep the gift.
Yeah.
It'll just sit there
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. He exchanges it all. So it's like, okay, right. Why am I?
Yeah, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it or want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much, Ingrid. This has been fantastic, really eye-opening. And all the questions I had, they sort of evolved by yourself, by talking about what you're learning in parenting and how you're changing things from how you were raised. All those questions. It was fantastic. Very, I think I said fantastic more than I've ever said before. When the British word fantastic just keeps coming in, and I think Ingrid, fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. This is really great. I really enjoyed talking to you.
They're wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. And so for everybody listening and watching, I will post, when this comes out, we'll also have all her Ingrid's links if you'd like to reach her. And as you can tell, a fantastic storyteller, just by your stories as you're relating. It's like, okay, I get why you're high up there in the speaking time competition. So thank you so much. And yeah, wow, lots and lots for us all to learn. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you, Anya. Have a wonderful day.